Hello again, book lovers. I Am Dynamite is the title of the book that I'm going to review. It's by Sue Prideaux and it's from 7 years ago now, from 2018. Now, I am a long-time Nietzsche-phile, part-time Nietzschologist, so this book kind of passed me by, but I bought it and I read it, and very good it was. That is to say, I've read a lot of Nietzsche biographies, and a lot of them are quite heavy on the philosophy and the thinking. This one is more of a almost Dickensian tale. It starts off with Nietzsche being invited to meet Wagner in a cafe. So we begin with the Nietzsche-Wagner relationship, and then we flash back to the more standard biography of school to philosophy professor to Wagner to wandering European, which I've trodden many a time. However, this book brought a lot of things to my attention that I didn't know. It's pretty deep, but it doesn't go into the philosophy part. What it is very broad, so it expands out into rather delightful things that I didn't know. For example, I didn't know that his father was the pastor at the very same church as Johann Sebastian Bach had been, or that Wagner himself had fought alongside famous anarchist Bakunin in Dresden in 1849. Or that the inspiration for becoming what you are, the famous phrase, was from the Latin poet Pindar. And when the author stretches out the web to include all these things, as well as packing in the odd highfalutin reference, like describing the sea as wine dark at one point, and the family history is dug into much more deeply than is the case usually, and that the scenes which are painted are, as I said earlier, Dickensian, I kind of meant redolent with description. We're all ready to rehash the, let's face it, on the surface, not very interesting life of Friedrich Nietzsche. Perhaps people will think the end act of his madness is the most interesting part. And certainly you get the usual finale of what Elizabeth Nietzsche did with the Nietzschean texts which she'd inherited and which she clutched to herself, although I believe Ray kept a lot of private letters. And so that forms part of the biography and, of course, the legend, which leads us on to Hitler using the selected works of Nietzsche, who, as one Nazi commented later, apart from not being a nationalist or a socialist and having no racial prejudices, he would have been a damn fine Nazi. I should say some of these details were revealed in letters from 1981. And the other thing that struck me was that Nietzsche hardly sold any books at all. And the idea that he could just wander around living off a salary which he gets because he was at Basel University is another little insight into past lives, isn't it? You often wonder how composers and writers made their name, and basically they got signed up by powerful people who supported them. In this case, Basel University. Anyway, off he goes with his up and down relationships, intellectually with other philosophers, and off goes Elizabeth with her new paramour, Mr. Förster, to Paraguay to found an anti-Semitic, purely Aryan colony, which scratches a living, has all the usual fallings out. Mr. Förster ends up going mad, and she eventually kind of abandons it. Hitler comes to her funeral and looks very sad, and there we leave the story. It's left hanging in the air, the story of Germania, the colony in Paraguay, so I had to look that up. Tut tut, Ms. Prideaux. Apparently it still exists, but it's now the region of Paraguay. But you can still, if you like, rent out the hut that she used to live in, as far as I understand. I always read books, so I'll be reading 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, depending on what they are and what my circumstances are. And occasionally you get a book that sort of jostles itself to the top of your reading list. And this was one. As I say, I kind of read it like a novel. Quite happy to get back to it, even though I knew the story and how it ended. So, in summary, I Am Dynamite was dynamite. If you want a biography of Nietzsche to get you interested, you get a few aphorisms at the end as well, some selected pieces of wit. I suspect the idea is exactly that people who don't really know about Nietzsche's philosophy. Well, you've read his life, have a look at some of his witty sayings, and see if you're attracted to read more. I would say that I am attracted to read more of Ms. Prideaux, who has biographies on Munch, who I can't stand personally, and Strindberg, who I think would be more interesting. You can see the sort of circle that she focuses on. I'd probably be happy to read them both, just because of the entertainment value of this biography of Nietzsche.